الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى عترة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجهم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر لحظة مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد فقد قال الله في كتاب المجيد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تخزني يوم يبعثون يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Amma Ba'd, Bibi Fatima, the Imam of our time, Imam Zamana, and to all of you, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm sorry if you're waiting for me. I didn't realize, I'm so sorry. So yesterday we talked about self-reflection and we said how it is important to do it correctly and recognize that our soul is within our body and that's who we are. And the purpose of this world is for the growth of the soul in order to reach its potential, its perfection, and therefore paradise, the 3 Ps. We also looked at the 4 stages of mourning. So we talked about the fact that it's not enough just to cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That is the first stage of mourning where we emotionally connect to Imam. And then we have the second stage where we intellectually connect to his message. And then the third stage is where action happens in our lives. And then the 4th stage is preparing for our Imam, inshallah. We then made sense of the hadith that talks about how important crying is, and then said that through our tears we will gain Jannah as long as we don't make a mockery of the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And finally, we talked about what it meant to give fursa, to give condolences to Sayyidah Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. As you know, my lecture series is on attaining Qalb Salim, in order that we may find contentment and peace in this world and in the hereafter, be successful, inshallah. So today I want to concentrate on this this phrase Qalb Salim and what it means and why the Qalb. But first and foremost, why have I chosen this topic? So the verses that I recited at the beginning of my talk from Surah Shura, which is Surah number 26, verse 87 to 89, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ, and disgrace me not on the day when they are raised. So this is Prophet Ibrahim's dua, where he's asking Allah that on that day, on the day of judgment, for him not to be disgraced. And then he goes on to say, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ, because on that day, mal, our possessions, our property, and our banun, our children, our family, will not avail us at all. The only thing that will help is إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, except the one who comes to Allah with a qalb salim. So what Prophet Ibrahim is saying, that in order for me not to be disgraced, I need to make sure that I'm not focusing just on my possessions and my children, my family, but to actually work towards getting this qalb salim, this contented heart, because that's what's going to help me on that day. Nothing else will help me. Yeah, if you look at our lives are revolved around our families and our possessions. You know, we work so hard throughout the day, from morning to evening, trying to attain enough to be able to possess good things, and in order to make our families happy through the possessions that they may have. So let's look at this Qalb Salim and why it's important. So first and foremost, why qalb? Why the heart? There are various reasons why the word heart has been used, the word qalb has been used. So for example, if you, within the English language, when you want to get to the actual matter, when you want to get to the specific point that you're making, the saying is the heart of the matter. Yeah, so that's what specifically is what you're talking about. So the focus is the qalb. That's where the significance is. That's where the focus is. Also, the heart is where emotions, feelings, love, sincerity, niyyah is. That's where it all radiates from. Remember, within the Arabic terminology, qalb and ruh, the soul, the heart and the soul are very interlinked. Yeah, so the qalb is where all emotions happen, where love of Allah happens, where love of each other happens. The qalb is where the sincerity comes from, the niyyah comes from. And the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said every action is judged on its niyyah. And that's beautiful, because if we were judged on the results of our actions, it would be very, very difficult. I'll give you a simple example. A while back, I was sitting on the train and it was really, really packed. And this woman came into the carriage, and she looked very heavily pregnant. So this young man got up and he offered her seat. Now, a beautiful act, an act of goodness, where he wants to get up and give the seat to someone who is pregnant. And she started yelling at him. She got so angry. She got so mad. And she's like, so just because I'm a little bit fat, you think I need a seat? You think I can't stand up? And the poor guy is trying to explain himself, and he's just making it worse, because he turned around and he said to her, oh, I thought you were pregnant. And she just lost it at him, totally lost it at him. So again, you see that if he was being judged on his results, then he would have failed dramatically. But if he's judged on his intention, which he can control, because for results there are so many variables, so many things have to come into place for it to be successful. Whereas with intention, I'm the only one who's in control of my intention, and it only seems fair then God should judge me on the intention, because he's judging me on what I can control. So again, it depends on what his intention was, and no one can see that except God, and only he knows what his intention was. We couldn't tell. So, I mean, if his intention was because he wanted to show what a good guy he was to others on the carriage, maybe there was a girl he liked and he wanted to show off to her. Maybe, I don't know. If these were the sort of intentions he had, then he would obviously not be successful. But if his intention was for the pleasure of God, then it doesn't matter that the woman didn't take the seat. It doesn't matter that the woman yelled at him. None of that matters. He would have been successful anyway. So, intention is what's important, and that comes from the heart. Yeah, that comes, and also the heart is the place where real truth is known. The heart sees the reality of things. If you think about it, the Quran was revealed into the heart of the Holy Prophet. In fact, the sixth Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, says, knowledge is a light which Allah puts into the heart. Again, showing that through this light, then we'll be able to see the truth, the reality of things. And if our hearts are corrupted because of what we've done, then we won't be able to see the truth. We won't be able to see the reality. So, for example, in Surah Mutaffifin, Surah number 83, verse 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Kalla bal ra'na ala qulubihim ma kanu yaksibun. Not at all. Rather, what they used to do has become like rust upon their hearts. So you can see that, rust is something that stops the thing from functioning correctly, from functioning to its optimum level. If you had a bicycle and you left it outside in the rain and it became rusty, you wouldn't be able to ride it as well as if it didn't have rust. In the same way, what we do, the sins that we commit, the disobedience to God that we do, it forms a rust level on our hearts, and therefore the heart cannot function the way it's meant to, and it can't see the truth and the reality of things as it's meant to. In fact, we have that whenever we commit a sin, there's a little black mark that's made on our heart. And Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam explains this further. He says, when a person commits a sin, a dark spot appears on the heart. And if they repent, it's wiped away. But if they do not repent and commit more sin, the spot blots and spreads till it reaches a point of no return, and it seals the heart. This is where the sealing of the heart happens. So it is through our own actions, through our own disobedience, that we blacken our hearts, and therefore the heart is now sealed, and it's not open to any guidance, anything that anyone will say. It won't be able to accept it. So it's important for us to realize that we've done this to ourselves. In fact, in Surah A'raf, Surah number 7, verse 179, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, lahum qulubul la yafqahuna biha. They have hearts with which they do not comprehend. They have hearts, but they can't see the reality. They can't understand. They can't comprehend anything. So it's important to realize that our hearts are able to see the truth, but we can block them through our disobedience, through our sins. So the question arises, okay, so I know sins affect my heart. What about thoughts? What about negative thoughts? What about sinful thoughts? Well, we know that you're not held responsible for thoughts, but it still has an effect on our hearts. And what will happen is that these thoughts will eventually turn into action. So we need to make sure that we try to control our thoughts, and we're able to, just like we're able to control our limbs, we're able to control our thoughts, we're able to control our emotions. The problem is we've not realized that we can control, so we allow our thoughts just to have free reign, and this is why then we're constantly having repetitive thoughts, having negative thoughts, because we've allowed that. So if we realize that we can control our thoughts, then we can take control and actually empower ourselves through our thinking. And it's important that, as I said, the heart is where the love is, and the love should be dictated by God. And so we should love all of God's creation. And obviously the love increases dependent on how close they are to God. So we're told that, a mu'min is a brother or a sister to another mu'min. So each one of you is my sister, and I should love you as a sister. And it's important, and that comes from the heart, and it's important to do that. So, and also it's not just because that you're mu'min. I mean, even anyone, any creation of God I should love, because God created that creation. And so when you do something wrong, I'm not allowed to say that I hate you because you're a mu'min, because you're a Muslim. You've come into the fold of Islam, so therefore I cannot hate you. I can hate the action, but I can't hate you. And it's important to recognize that. And just like we make excuses for our biological sisters, we should make excuses for each other. In fact, we should make excuses for anyone. How many times have you said something or reacted because there's just so much going on, because you're overtired, because you've, I don't know, you're going through problems, maybe health issues, maybe financial problems, maybe emotional problems. And, someone says something or someone does something and you react in a way that you would not normally have done if you're relaxed. And then you really regret it later on. And how awful do you feel when that person judges you for that and, and makes accusations? And you think, if only you walked a few steps in my shoes, if only you knew what was going on in my life, you would understand why I reacted the way I did. So maybe we need to do that for others as well, because everyone's going through something in their life. And this is why the famous hadith of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, when someone does something wrong to you, before you blame them, think of 70 excuses why they may have done it. Maybe they've had an argument with with someone close to them, their spouse, their parents, their children. Maybe they've just had some bad news. Maybe they've just been told that they've got, God forbid, that they've got terminal illness, or someone close to them has a terminal illness. Maybe financially they've just been given some bad news. There's some, maybe they woke up with a really bad headache. Maybe they didn't realize the way that they were saying it. Maybe they were joking and it fell flat. There are so many reasons people say things and which are quite hurtful. It's not because they're evil. So a lot of the times it's just that they've not thought it through. So if we can learn to make 70 excuses, I'm guaranteeing by the time you get to sort of 5, 6, you think, it's not worth it, forget it, I won't blame the person. It's very rare that you'll actually sit there and make 70 excuses and then blame them. So you learn not to be, jury and judge and condemn a person for something that they said or did, even if it is hurtful. And like I said, if they say something hurtful, maybe we needed to hear that. Maybe it's something that I need to correct in myself. And if I find that there isn't, once I've self-reflected on what they've said and I've found that there's no truth in what they've said, then I can pray for them, right? Because obviously they're thinking things wrong and it's affecting them, and I feel sorry for them, so I pray for them, and in that way then I grow from it as well. So we realize that the heart is an important aspect, the spiritual heart. Just like the physical heart is important in our bodies and it keeps us alive, the spiritual heart is important for our soul. So we need to take care of our heart in the same way we need to take care of our body. So just like the body needs food, the heart needs food. The heart's food is, and we're talking about the spiritual heart, this is the soul. It's anything that connects you to Allah. So it may be any dhikr, the holy recitation of the Holy Quran, salah, fasting, anything at all. And the more you do, the more the heart grows. But just like the body needs a minimum amount to eat, so does the soul, the heart. And therefore we need to make sure that we at least do the wajib salah, the 5 salah a day. Whether we feel like it or not is neither here nor there. Just like whether we feel like eating or not. You know, when you're really, really ill and you don't feel like eating and you're told, no, you have to eat, because otherwise how are you going to get better? How are you going to get strong enough to fight the infection? In the same way, even when your soul doesn't feel like it, when it's really ill, when it's really weak, when it doesn't feel like praying, you have to pray. Otherwise, how will it be strong enough to fight the illness that's causing the disconnection from Allah? And just like the body needs protection, so like when we go out in the sun, we'll put, sunscreen. When we go out in the cold, we'll wear warm clothes, hats, gloves, and so forth. So does the soul, so does the heart. And it needs protection from any sinful situation. So this could be people, this could be gatherings, mixed gatherings, music, anywhere, where you're going to be pulled into sin, you need to protect yourself from that. And just like the body needs to release its toxins, like just like the body, you don't want to take in toxins, you don't want to take in poison. We need to make sure that we don't do that to our heart as well. So we mustn't take in any sin. And just like the body releases toxins through urine, through sweat, we need to release the toxins from the heart, the sins that we have accumulated daily. And we need to do that through tawbah. And this is why self-reflection is so important. That at the end of the day, if we self-reflect on what we've done in the day, then we can actually do tawbah for the sins that we may have okayed, the sins that we've overlooked. And if we've done tawbah, then inshallah they have been forgiven and pardoned, and then they won't be held in front of us on that day. And just like we shouldn't overburden the body, we shouldn't overburden the soul, the heart as well. So it's important to treat it gently and to encourage it, but do it continuously. It's like if you think about an exercise regime, you don't just go one day and do so much that you actually sort of end up maybe breaking something or tearing a tendon or damaging a muscle or something, and then don't do anything for weeks. That's not how it works. You need to do it slowly. You need to do it continuously, and it's the same with the heart and the soul. You need to do this mustahabat slowly and continuously. But even the problem is, a lot of the times we will damage the heart and not even realize that we're damaging it. We will break the heart and not even realize. So how is the heart broken? What breaks the heart? Well, the heart is something that needs to be filled with love, and it needs to be filled with the right love. When we fill it with the wrong love, then that's when we break it. And the love that we need to fill our hearts up with is the love of Allah. If we fill our hearts with the love of anything other than Allah, then we will break our hearts. The heart will not work in the way it's meant to. The heart will be disabled to a certain extent. I'll give you an example here. So I had to go somewhere a while back. This is years back. And my husband had just bought a new car, and my car was, I don't know, it was in the garage or something, so I was driving his car, and I had to go somewhere, and I took the car, and as I'm driving along, I'm already tense because I don't like driving his car. So, you know, when you're tense, you're sitting there looking at all the negatives and you know, you're anxious and stuff. And I notice that the gauge for the petrol is really low and the lights on. And I'm thinking, he knows I don't like driving a car when there's no petrol in it. And automatically I start getting more and more irritated about it. I was just like, now I have to stop and I'll have to fill it up. And, you know, he knows I don't like doing this. Why does he do this? And again, jury, judge, and condemnation. You know, I've decided that he's in the wrong. I'm not sitting there thinking of 70 excuses. And this was a huge learning for me because it made me realize that, you know what, we know these hadiths, but we don't live them. And it's important that we do live them. Anyway, I was sitting there and I'm thinking, oh, I can't believe he's done this. And he's like, you know, how, you know, he doesn't listen to anything I say and he's supposed to love me and is this love? And, you know, I wouldn't do this to him. All these things are going through my mind. I'm not sitting there thinking, well, you know what, maybe he didn't realize, maybe he was going to the petrol station and it was closed. Maybe he was on his way to the petrol station and I phoned him and told him to hurry back and that's why he came back. Maybe, you know, there's something else going on and he, you know, his mind's on that. And no excuse at all, right? I've sat there and actually condemned him. So I go to the petrol station and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, I'll just fill up enough for myself. So I'll only fill up £5–10 and then he can fill up himself. He doesn't deserve for me to fill it up. Why should I do that for him? Not thinking that I'm expecting him to do it for me. Not thinking that I'm not even paying for the petrol. He's paying for the petrol because I'm paying with his card. But you know, this concept of, you know what, when our egos come into play, when it's been bruised in any way whatsoever, we retaliate. And this is exactly what I was doing. I was retaliating. I wanted to show him. I was so angry at him. I wasn't going to help him. I wasn't going to do anything. So I get to this petrol station and then I'm thinking, you know what, I'm supposed to love this guy. I wouldn't expect him to do this. So I should, you know, I should fill it up. I'm being silly. I should fill it up. So I'm filling it up. And as I'm filling it up in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to tell him, look, I did this for you. Although you didn't deserve it, I did it. Again, look at my niyyah. Not for Allah, but to have a go at him, to show him that, look, I did the right thing, although you didn't do the right thing. Look, I love you enough to do it, even though you're in the wrong. Yeah? So I fill it up, go and pay for it, and then I'm driving out the petrol station. Literally 5 minutes down the road, the car just stops. In the middle of the road, it just stops. And I'm thinking, what? I don't understand. Why is it stopped? So I'm looking at it. The petrol's full. I'm trying to start it up. It's just not starting. So who do I call? First person that I call is my husband. After all the things I've said about him, after all the things I've done, you know, thought about him, he's the one I'm going to ask to help me. So I call him and I say to him, I don't know what's happened to the car. It stopped everything. He's like, oh my God, no, but it had enough, you know, there was enough petrol for you to, I know you don't like driving on empty, but there was enough for you to get to wherever you were going to. And I'm really sorry, but it shouldn't have stopped. I don't understand. I'm like, no, it's not the petrol. I filled it up. And he said to me, oh, then why is it stopped? And I said, I don't know. It's just stopped in the middle. He said, what did you do? And I said, I didn't do anything. I filled it up. I drove it out of the petrol station. A few minutes down the road, it's just stopped. And there's just this silence. And then he says to me, Masma, what petrol did you put in the car? And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, what do you mean, what petrol did I put in the car? I put petrol in the car. And he's like, you put petrol in the car, or did you put diesel in the car? And I said, no, I put petrol in the car. It's like, Masma, it's a diesel car. You can't put petrol in the car. And I was like, oh, well, how am I supposed to know? And instead of sitting there saying, sorry, I can't believe I did that. How am I supposed to know? I never fill it up. Again, not realizing that I've never filled it up because he doesn't give it to me on empty. He fills it up. He does, you know, he listens to me. And it's this one time for whatever reason, he didn't do it. And I just lost it. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God. So, you know, the poor guy had to sort it out. I just, okay, you know what? I'm going to get home. You need to, and he sorted it all out. But my point is, the car was working fine. I filled it with the wrong fuel. In the same way with our hearts, if we fill it with the wrong fuel, then they won't work. They'll stop. They'll be disabled. And the fuel that the heart needs is the love of Allah, and only the love of Allah. I can't fill it up with anything but the love of Allah. If I fill it up with something as well as the love of Allah, then the love of Allah cannot enter my heart, because the love of Allah is so pure that it cannot enter into a heart which has got impure things in it. And every other love is an impure love. Only the love of Allah is purity itself. It's like if I was to give you a bottle of water and just put one drop of urine in it. It wouldn't change the color of the water. It wouldn't change the taste of the water. It wouldn't look any different, but you wouldn't drink it because the urine is so disgusting that even one drop of it in that whole bottle, I'm not going to drink it. And in the same way, just one other love in my heart, then Allah's love cannot enter that heart. It just can't. So I need to make sure that I love everything else as an extension of my love of Allah. I love my children because Allah's told me to. I love my husband because Allah's told me to. I love my parents because Allah's told me to. I love all of you guys because Allah's told me to. There is no direct love except the love of Allah. Now, if I was to ask you, do you guys love Allah? Is your heart filled with the love of Allah? Every one of you, every one of us, including myself, would say, yes, of course it is. Of course I love Allah. Why wouldn't I love Allah? He's given me so much. I'm so grateful to him. I am who I am because of him. I'm alive because of him. Of course I love him. But do I only love Allah? Are all my other loves an extension of my love of Allah? That's what the question. I'm going to ask you a few questions for you to reflect on, to answer this question, to actually see whether you truly, truly love Allah, or are there other loves in your heart? And maybe some of these loves are even stronger than your love of Allah. I don't want you to answer this out loud. I don't want you to tell anyone. I want you just to self-reflect on it and think for yourself. So the first question is, what do I think about the most? What keeps me up at night? What's the first thing I think of in the morning? What's the last thing that I think of at night? What do I think about? What is it that is on my mind the whole day? The second question is, the last time I cried or got really angry, what was it about? What triggered it? And the last question is, what am I most scared of losing? Now, if we truly had the love of Allah only in our hearts, then the answer to all of these questions would be Allah. What is the thing that I think about the most? Allah. I wake up in the morning and I think about Allah. I go to sleep and I think about Allah. Throughout the day, I'm thinking about Allah. Every action I do focuses on Allah. What would He want me to do? Every thought that I have focuses on Allah. How would He can see my thoughts. Is He happy with the way I'm thinking? Is He happy with the words that I've used? Is He happy with what I've done? Do I live my life like that? What is it that makes me really, really angry? What's it that makes me cry? Anything that is against God. If, God forbid, I do something that I know would displease Allah, that should make me cry. Anything that anyone does against God should upset me, should make me cry, should anger me. What am I scared of losing? I'm scared of getting to a stage where I can no longer gain from the love of Allah, gain from His mercy. I am scared of losing that guidance that He constantly sends to me, not being able to, not because He doesn't stop sending it, but because I'm not able to take it. I'm scared that I will seal my heart, so I will not be able to then understand anything of true reality. All the answers should be Allah, but for most of us, it's not. For most of us, it's my children that I worry about and think about throughout the day, or someone that I love, my husband, my I don't know, my work, my studies. Even during difficult life situations, it should still be Allah, because we know that Allah is in control. For most of us, it's our children, our husbands, our career, money, status, our ego, our desires that we think about more than we think about Allah. And that's why then we put those things ahead of Allah. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that if we have a broken heart, then the only way to fix it is through the Holy Quran, through connecting to Him, through connecting to His words. So He says, for example, in Surah Yunus, Surah number 10, verse 57, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وشفاء لما في صدور وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين. And it is a cure for what is in the breasts and a guidance and a mercy for the believers. So if my heart is broken, if my heart is not functioning correctly, if my heart is full of the love of other than Allah, then I need to fix it by connecting more to him. The more I connect to him, the more then I realize how much I love him, and my heart starts overflowing with his love, and all the other loves come out and they become extensions of his love. But the problem is, a lot of the times I don't realize that my heart is damaged. I don't realize that it's broken. I don't realize that it's disabled. You know that whenever our body is damaged, whenever it's something happens to our body, we realize, because we feel the pain and agony. And if we don't realize, so sometimes, for example, when we're young, a lot of the times when we're young, for those of you who are as old as I am, when you get all these aches and pains, and you think back and you think, you know what? I used to be told, if you keep continuing to drink all these fizzy drinks and eat all this sugar, you're going to notice it when you get older. And you do. And it's like, now I realize, oh my God, it's like, these aches and pains, and, it's because of my really unhealthy, food that I used to eat, my unhealthy diet, and the lack of exercise. And so I come to a realization, and I do something about it. And even if I don't do anything about it, the pain continues and the agony continues, but it stops at death. When it comes to my heart, my soul, the pain, if I don't do anything about it, the pain doesn't stop at death. It continues after death. It will continue into eternity. And that is going to be difficult. So I need to do something about it. And Allah, out of his love and mercy, will continuously keep showing us where we're not putting him forward, where we're not loving him, when we're not filling our hearts with his love, but we've got other loves. He'll put us in life situations where this realization will come in, and he'll keep reminding us. And if we don't get the lesson, then he may choose to take away that thing that is filling our hearts with love. Whether it be my children, whether it be my husband, whether it be money, whether it be status, whatever it is, he may take it away, not because he wants to punish me, but because he wants to refocus me back to what I need, which is him. And I have made this thing my all rather than God. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Azab, in Surah number 33, verse 4, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Ma ja'ala Allahu li rajulin min qalbayni fi jawfi. Allah has not made any of mankind, two hearts within him. There is no way I have it in me to have two loves. I can only have the love of Allah. It's like filling my heart with other than the love of Allah. It's like filling a diesel car with petrol. So why is it so important to have the love of Allah in my heart? Why do I need to have a heart that functions correctly? Why is that important? Because it goes back to what is the purpose of my creation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us this in Surah Zariyat, Surah number 51, verse 56, where he says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, wa ma khalaqtu al-jinna wal insa illa liya'budun. And I have not created the jinn or the men or mankind except that they do ubudiyah to me, that they become my abd. What does that mean? If you were to translate this correctly, then it means to become his slave. The only purpose of our creation is to become his slave. But because slave has such a negative connotation, most of the English translations will say that I have not, the translation will say, I have not created jinn or mankind except to worship me. But if you think about it, yes, slavery is horrible. Yes, if I'm a slave to anyone, they will break me, they can treat me, they can abuse me, they can do whatever they want. And it's a horrible feeling. But when I am the slave of God, it is actually freeing. It's actually allowing me to reach my potential. If I can break my ego and become the slave of God, that's how I will reach my potential. Think of the shahada that we recite. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. It is only when he became the abd, the slave of Allah, that he got Rasul, that he got the messengership, the prophethood. If he was not able to break his ego and become the slave of God, then he would never have become the Rasul of God. And in the same way, if we can break our ego and we can become the slave of Allah, then we truly can reach our potential and get so much, things that we would never imagine. But let's go with the meaning of worship, because that sits well with most people. So let's say that it says, the purpose of our creation is nothing but to worship him. Now look at the way it's been written. Look at the way that God has written it, okay? The way God says it. He says, I have not created jinn or mankind except to worship me. He doesn't say I've created jinn and man to worship me. Because if he said it in that way, then there could be other reasons. So for example, I can say, I went to East London in the morning to recite a Majlis, right? So I can say to you, oh, I went to East London in the morning to recite Majlis. Now, yes, I went there to recite Majlis, but I could have gone there to do other things as well. So I may have gone to see some friends there. I may have gone to do shopping. I may have gone to eat there. There may be other reasons why I've gone as well as reciting a Majalis, right? But if I tell you, I went to East London, I did not go to East London except to recite a Majlis, then what I'm saying is there is no other reason I went except to recite this Majlis. In the same way, God is saying that there is no reason for our creation except to worship him. Look at the way we do the Shahada, La ilaha illallah. There is no God except Allah. Once you've negated all the other gods, the only God that is left is Allah. In the same way, once you've negated all the other purposes for our creation, the fact that I'm a mother, the fact that I'm a daughter, the fact that I'm a grandmother, the fact that I'm a wife, the fact that I'm a friend, a woman, all of these things are all superficial coverings that we have, roles that we have in this world. They're not the purpose of my creation. If I can negate all of these as the purpose of my creation, then the only purpose that I have been created for is to worship him. And if that is the case, that is the only purpose for my creation, then I need to do it every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year of my life. And if a moment goes when I'm not worshiping him, then that is a wasted moment. That is a moment which there was no point of me living that moment because I was not serving the purpose of my creation. So that means that worship cannot just be when I recite my salah. It cannot just be when I'm in ziyarat. It has to be all the time, every single moment of the day. How can that be? How can I make every single thing a worship? The way to make everything a worship is to ensure that I do it only for his pleasure in the way he tells me to do it. Qurbatan ilallah does not mean I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for the pleasure of Allah. It means I'm doing it only for the pleasure of Allah. Because if I do it for others, again, I am joining it with God, and God doesn't want any part of it. In the same way, I cannot join the loves, I cannot join the niyyah. I have to do it only for his pleasure, only for his pleasure. And when I'm doing it only for his pleasure, then I have to do it in the way he tells me to do it. And so my ego comes out of the window. Everything that society tells me, culture tells me, all of that goes out of the window. What God tells me is the only thing that matters. Then it doesn't matter whether people feel bad, whether people feel upset, but as long as I am doing everything in the way he tells me to do it, then it's their journey, not mine. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm not breaking family ties. I'm doing it in the way he tells me to do it. So I'm not being rude with it, but I'm doing whatever he expects from me. And in that way, then every aspect of my day, of my life becomes a worship. Whether I'm listening to a majalis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, whether I'm going shopping, whether I'm going to pick up the kids and take them somewhere, whether I'm cooking, whether I'm going out with friends, whether I'm doing exercise, whether I'm just chilling with a cup of coffee, becomes a worship. If it is done with the niyyah, which is two-pronged, only for his pleasure and in the way he tells me to do it. And I can only truly do this, make this niyyah, if my heart is full of his love. When the heart is filled with his love, then I am able to make this niyyah. Otherwise, I go towards trying to please others. To the others that I love, I want to please them. I want to do things for them. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do things for others, but we should do it because God's told me to. It all goes back to the love of Allah. And this is why we're told then in Surah Baqarah, Surah number 2, verse 165. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, wa minan nasi man yattakhidhu min dunillahi andada. And there are some among men who take for themselves objects of worship, take other things other than God as objects of worship. Why do they do that? Yuhibbunahum ka hubbillah. Because they love Allah as they love others. others, or their love of others is like the love of Allah. I need to make sure that my love of Allah is only the love of Allah, and all other loves are an extension of that love. And in that way, then when I worship Him, it is out of love. It is tashrif. But if that love is gone, if I love others, then the religious duties that I do become taklif. They become burdens. They become things that I do resentfully. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.